everyone. Ways and Means Committee is now called to order, and I'd like to call on Councilmember Brad Brady for our invocation.
Please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for this gorgeous day that you've given us in the greatest city in the world. We pray that you will restore civility and help us make the best decisions that we can to guide our citizens and the city of Charleston to the best of our ability. Amen.
Approval of minutes.
So move.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Bids and purchases.
I'll move for approval of those 4 items.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on bids and purchases?
Who was the second? All right, thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item number 4.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded, but just so the public knows what we're voting on. This is the Human Resources Department, and it's a request for approval to submit a CDC Closing the Gap with Social Detriments of Health Accelerated Plan grant and the amount of $125,000 to address health disparities in chronic diseases. No match is required. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mayor.
I did want to point out that this application for this grant really folds in so nicely with the goals of our Health and Wellness Committee and also our soon-to-be recommendations from the Racial Equity and Conciliation Report.
Thank you for that, Mayor.
Yep.
We voted already, right?
Correct.
Item 5, Recreation
approval.
Department.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Again, this is a request to approve the submission of a grant application to USDA for summer food service program. All in favor say aye. The ayes have it.
And Mr. Chairman, if everyone could, when they're making motions or seconds, if you could please turn your mic on, that way we can pick you up on the recording. Thank you.
Okay. Item 6, is Jeremy Cook here? Could you give us some background on 6 and 7, please?
Yes, sir. Good to be with you all today. I'm Jeremy Cook with Haynes Sinclair Boyd, Special Counsel to the City of Charleston. A team of us have been working on both matters 6 and 7 for a better part of a year. Number 6 has to do with the Magnolia TIF. And this goes back to 2015. The city entered into a public infrastructure improvements agreement with the developer of Magnolia, outlining certain public infrastructure improvements that would be undertaken with the TIF revenues at Magnolia. Since that time, that agreement has been amended twice. The first amendment was to streamline the process for which notice would be given when the city relocates from the current public works facility in Magnolia. The second of which was more recently was to remove Laurel Island from the Magnolia TIF when the Laurel Island TIF was created. The amendment today does a few different things. Council may remember that the original agreement set forth different tranches of improvements that would be undertaken, all public infrastructure improvements publicly owned by the developer and by the city. Over time, that list has continued to be refined. So this amendment expands tranche 2, which is improvements undertaken by the city. Originally, tranche 2 only included the replacement public works facility, and it still does include that, but it's being expanded to include, among other things, specifically affordable housing with tax increment revenue. It also increases the projected revenue for tranche 2, which is the public works and the affordable housing, and increases funding for tranche 3, which is the additional public infrastructure improvements undertaken by the developer, publicly owned, within the TIF. It doesn't change anything else about the TIF, the length of the TIF, the participating entities, anything like that. So it's really how future TIF revenues will be used. And as council will remember, under the TIF statute, all TIF revenues can only be used on public infrastructure improvements located within the TIF or supporting the TIF.
Any questions on 6?
Move for approval 6 and 7.
Second.
Okay. We're only dealing with 6 right now. Okay, all in favor with regard to item 6? Aye. The ayes have it. Item 7, Jeremy?
Move for approval.
Jeremy?
Oh, okay. Okay, so number 7 is the first of these matters will be brought before council in the coming months. This one is specifically on the Morrison Drive TIF that was established about 2 years ago by City Council. Similar to the agreement with the developers of Magnolia, this sets forth how certain public infrastructure improvements will be undertaken specifically at the Morrison Yard portion of the Morrison Drive TIF. So this agreement only relates to those two parcels. Obviously, the housing part is what you see now with the office building to come next. So this sets forth the public infrastructure improvements that will be undertaken with the increment coming from those two parcels. There'll be a subsequent agreement brought before the council for the Laurel Island development and how the increment from those portions and the remainder of the TIF will be spent on public infrastructure improvements. So this agreement is only for those two parcels of Morrison Yard.
Move for approval.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion, questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to point out, which I think is really cool, one of the infrastructure improvements that's anticipated is a linear park that would allow folks to walk out to the Cooper River and have access to the harbor and a view of the harbor down below the bridge. It's an old rail spur that the developers have bought and are going to donate to the city. Of course, we'll have to improve it. But in our long-standing goal to make every bit of access available to the public to the water's edge, it might just seem like a little piece, but it'll be an important piece for that part of the city.
And if I'm not mistaken, Mayor, that was a part of the discussion as they brought forth their proposal. And I think it was Councilman Mitchell who insisted that we assure that place have public access.
Correct.
Councilman Mitchell?
Yes, also, along with that, they're all planning on doing some renovations so far as for the sidewalks on the side where the public housing is located, so that people can have access to walk on the sidewalk with the young people in that particular area, because there's no sidewalks there. So they're improving that themselves also and doing some other things that they're going to do for the people living in the public housing, which is right across the street from the development. So the people there are satisfied, and they're wholeheartedly happy to see them doing these things, because they didn't have to, but they're taking it upon themselves to do it.
I'm sure the people are appreciative. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item number 8. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. This particular item is an application for Forensic Science Improvement Grant Program. All in favor say aye. The ayes have it. Item 9, Police
Move for approval.
Department.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Item 9 is to submit an application for FY21 Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Abuse Site-Based Program. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Item 9.
I'll second.
Oh, we did 9. I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong. Item 10.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 11.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 12, Parks Capital Projects Approval, West Ashley Greenway Improvements.
Second.
All in favor say aye. The ayes have it. Item 13, Parks, Capital
for
Projects Approval of the
Second.
International African American Museum.
Second. Oh,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
The ayes have it. Item 14.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. The Parks Project Approval of a CPD Forensic Services Building Change Order. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Next, Committee on Real Estate, Chairman Shi.
Am I on? No, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Real Estate met yesterday afternoon at approximately 3:30 p.m. We had several items on our agenda. The first item was a proposal for an ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute a general agreement between the U.S. Department of Interior and the National Park Service. This is over in Liberty Square. Ms. Copeland is present if we have any questions, but the committee voted unanimously to approve that ordinance. This is property that several entities have an interest in, and this was just to clean up that memorandum of understanding between the federal government, the state government, and the city of Charleston. Item B is in regards to the pitchfork. This was to allow the mayor to execute an easement with Dominion Energy with Dominion Energy as to the pitchfork over by not Fenway Ballpark, but Fenwick Drive. That also was approved unanimously as well. The third item for consideration was a request for the mayor to execute an easement with Dominion Energy for the overhead underground electric lines, utility lines. That was also approved unanimously as well. Item D was a request for the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding to allow Carter to conduct training at the Sumar Street site. This is the property in my district known as the old Piggly Wiggly site. This was a contract, an agreement for them to use it for training purposes. It has a provision in the contract on the agreement that they could cancel it with 30 days written notice at our convenience. In other words, if there's a reason that we needed to get rid of that agreement, we could do that on 30 days written notice to them. That also passed with one dissenting vote. The item E was a request for the mayor to execute a temporary access agreement between the city of Charleston and GMS Cannon. This was access to 144 and 146 Cannon Street as a construction easement. That was approved unanimously as well. Item 7 is very similar document. This is a request for the mayor to execute an easement agreement between the city and Carter for a bus bench at 44 America Street. That was approved unanimously as well. Item G was a request for the mayor to execute the necessary documents to receive 1.1 acres of donated land at Harriet Street from HR Charleston 4th. This is to construct workforce housing. Ms. Giona Shaw Johnson is present. With this land, we'd have the opportunity to construct 26 housing units. This is just to go into the negotiations to have this approved. That was approved unanimously as well. Following, we had 4 annexations, 2 in District 7 and 2 in District 5. We received an update as to those properties from Mr. Morgan. The committee recommended approving those annexations unanimously as well. And finally, we went into, a request for Middle Street Partners to use an area under I-26 for construction, like a laydown area, storage facility area. That was approved as well. We went into executive session to discuss some contract negotiations dealing with the Greenbelt money. No action was taken on that. We directed staff to continue their negotiations. Mr. Chairman, I move that all items A through I be approved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Discussion, Councilman Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a lot of memorandum of understanding on here, and I was listening to y'all's meeting on YouTube yesterday. And I'm just wondering whether or not we are actually being compensated for allowing people to use our facilities or our parking lots, our storage facilities, or doing storage. You know, in my line of work, and I'm sure all of you know, in the construction industry and the way things are going with the housing market and everything like that, space is at a premium. And, you know, we can't be in the thought process that we can give everything away for free all the time. I look back at this Sumar Street, Piggly Wiggly for one. You know, I know that we're waiting on a report or some designs as to what that's going to look like if we to go in a route of having a civic building on that site. But we've owned that site for 4+ years. We paid $3 million for it. And, you know, somebody would come in and pay a premium for that site today. And it may be more beneficial for us to quit giving away everything for free. I know we're trying to be great partners. CARTA's great. We need CARTA. We need to work with these other partners. But utilizing laydown space or utilizing a parking lot for an extended period of time, you know, are we really getting the investment out of what we thought we were going to get? So I guess I ran it a little bit, but I'd love to know what our plan is with Sumar Street. Are we going to be getting those plans soon? And whether or not we're getting any compensation for allowing people to use our spaces like this.
Chair.
Well, as to the Sumar Street property, we are using that for the fire department, uses that for training purposes from time to time. And with CARTA, we are getting compensated, I think $250 per month. And with that, it is a agreement that we can terminate in 30 days notice. As to the specifics with Sumar Street, yes, we've been working on those plans. We presented to City Council in 2019 the conceptual designs for that development of that property. We bid it out. Landmark was the only bidder, and we've been working with them since 2020 with these plans. They submitted those plans for our review. I can tell you the exact date. They came to the West Ashley Revitalization Commission in May 13th, 2020, and presented those specific plans that we had laid out through our design office. That's what we were looking for. And so we are expecting a memorandum of understanding or a contract with Landmark at our July 20th meeting for council's review and hopefully approval to go forward with Landmark for them to proceed with the development of Sumar Street. So one of the things I just wanted to make sure that we had in this agreement with CARTA that we could terminate at a moment's notice if necessary to let them off to get them off the property if we needed to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have concerns for Sumar Street and that property. I wasn't here 4 years ago, 5 years ago when this was voted on, but my understanding was the reason why the city was purchasing this property is that it is the gateway to West Ashley, and that there was going to be potentially something there that we didn't want, that was not going to look good for the people coming into West Ashley and coming into the city of Charleston through West Ashley. So we were going to buy this piece of property to make sure that we're revitalizing West Ashley. And, you know, I understand this is a temporary situation. You know, that certainly we can end it at any time, but this was not the purpose that we bought this property for. And I don't believe that this helps advance West Ashley. It certainly doesn't beautify West Ashley to have buses sitting there for training and sitting there. And it's certainly not what we want for the gateway of West Ashley or the city. So I'm not going to vote for item D. Thank you.
Can I respond to that, please, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman? So first, just so everyone clear, there will be no buses sitting at Sumar Street. We're not going to park them there. We're just going to train our drivers there. Because right now, as you know, it's very difficult to find any open land in this area to do training. And so on behalf of CARTA, we, without training our drivers, can't man or woman our buses, can't pick up our customers, and therefore can't move people around the region. This is temporary. This is something that we brought to the mayor and now to the real estate committee. It's a stopgap measure. We get it. We'll be there with the fire department just a few days a week. It'll be the first time since we invested $3 million, that we've generated any money from this property. Not a lot, but it's a step in the right direction. So I'd humbly ask council members that you approve this, knowing that we're there temporarily. We're advancing the cause, among other things, of public transit, which we move a ton of people in West Ashley. This does help West Ashley a lot, because our drivers without training can't go to work. So if there was any other place we could have done this, we would have. This is literally one of the few open lots available that is controlled by someone that we have the ability to have a negotiation with and not charge a ton of money. As you know, public transit is heavily subsidized. We don't have a ton of money to do this, but in the end, this will work to the benefit of our community. You won't even notice they're there. I mean, I don't know how many of you even knew that we were training the fire department out there. I mean, have you seen it? Not often. And there'll be the same thing with our drivers. They will be out there very rarely. As soon as the training's done, the buses will be gone. There'll be no parking there, nothing overnight. It will not be something that you look at and go, that just looks terrible. We'll keep it clean. We'll be fully insured. Like I said, we're gonna pay a fee to the city. So I'd humbly ask that you all vote this. And as soon as there's a better use for Sumar Street, including, by the way, selling it, we'll get out of the way. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to associate myself with Councilmember Griffin's comments about, are we, every time that we have an opportunity to be a good player, just something that we approve, like we have approved this Middle Street Partners redevelopment of this, totally underutilized property. But nevertheless, we are giving them value that is monetary. We should be able to put a good price on it. And the hour before we had real estate committee yesterday, we took quite a while to listen to a really very proactive and long researched report and recommendation from others of our staff member across city departments, especially public services and T&T in particular, to restructure our fees for when builders or delivery or whatever uses of our either metered spaces, or we have to close off part of a street in order to accommodate some sort of build out, we're gonna charge more money. So I do feel like we're on the right track, and I think we should continue to keep going. Every time we open the real estate section, it's how much money is being made on behalf of redevelopment and building and growth in Charleston. And as we know, when we do the budget in a few months, we're sort of at the bottom of that food chain when it comes to supporting infrastructure and our residents with the taxes that we can collect from property value. So I think we should ask ourselves that question every time and start to charge more.
Mayor.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, since I think the motion on the floor is on all of the items.
Yes.
I do want to thank staff for their work to come to this agreement with the National Park Service. It's been an outstanding matter for a number of years, and I appreciate them working to resolve that. That's item A. On item E, I thank Chris and the owners of this property for agreeing to this easement, which allows us to continue with the Earhart Street project, a very important drainage project for the medical university and the hospital district. Number G, I want to thank the folks with Highland and the Magnolia development. They didn't really have to do this, but they came forward and offered this property to kind of get a head start on affordable housing as part of that development. So I view that very positively. On the item D, that with Carter, I would like to comment that it is a non-exclusive agreement. So it doesn't give them, exclusive use of the property. It may be pretty short-lived. And Councilmember Shade may have mentioned, we had the concept design for the development presented to council some time ago. We do plan to bring to y'all in July the development agreement with Trademark so that we'll be able to move this thing forward. And I'll take take a hit here that it's taken us longer to bring this forward than anybody would have liked, myself included. And for the last year and a half, I must say that there were some plausible reasons. One being with the pandemic, the real estate market was uncertain as to how much office space would be needed and that kind of issue. And then there was the matter of our own budget, because when the concept plan is fully developed and priced out and comes back to council, we're going to need to put some money in the game. And honestly, time has been on our side to allow that TIF district to mature a little bit so that we're able to recognize some income revenue that we're going to be able to put into the investment. So I'll be honest with you, I feel like we needed a year or two for that TIF district to mature since the time it's been formed. So I believe it's all going to work out in the end. We'll bring you that development agreement next month and get to work on it. Thank you.
Councilman Griffin?
Yes, sir. Just quickly, I know as a city, we're not a business, so we're not going to do everything the way the private sector would do it, but we're also not a charity. And we have to remember that this isn't our money that we're spending. It's our citizens, our constituents' money. And we invested $3 million and then demolition of that building. So closer to $4 million. It's been 4 years. We're finally going to have a first revenue source ever on that property. But at $3,000 a year, it would take 1,000 years to pay off if we were to be that generous. And so at the end of the day, we've got to look at these plans and make a decision. Is this what we really want to do? Because we know we don't have a lot of money right now. We haven't for the last couple of years. If we can't find good revenue sources for this property, we got to make a decision that's going to benefit our constituents. And unfortunately, as much as I love Carta, people seeing buses over there is not going to do it. So I'm going to vote against this tonight, but I do support the initiative. I just want us to put our feet to the fire and make a decision on this site, because it may be much more valuable in the private sector, and we can rezone it so that it ends up being what we need it to be. But we're not the private sector. We don't have the kind of funds necessary to maybe build this civic center, which we don't have any idea how much it's going to cost.
Chairman Chi.
Yes, sir. If I can respond to some of these comments, Mr. Chairman. I've been working on Sumar Street since 2016. The mayor and I met with county officials to address what was called the suicide merge at their offices back then in March of 2016. When a developer wanted to install a 20-pump gas station, the community rallied around and we fought that off. We stopped that from happening because that was going to just be a big black eye in West Ashley. And as Councilmember Shealy has stated and others have stated, this is the gateway to Charleston. This is the gateway to South Carolina. This is the birthplace of our cities, the birthplace of our state. We have one opportunity. We have one opportunity to get this thing right. Because what we put out there has got to be the flagship of our city. We tried to commemorate the 350th anniversary of the founding of Charleston. We got sidetracked because of COVID. And we've been putting our efforts into this. And let me just sort of talk about a few things that caused some of this delay. First of all, some of the misunderstanding. We bought this property for $3.029 million. It's not a $4 million investment. The amount of work it took, the bid that was used to demolish the building was under $200,000. So we're talking about our investment of $3.2 million, which is a big drop from $4 million that people have passed that number around. It's inaccurate. Since we bought the property, we've engaged the community at various levels as to what they wanted at that property. We've held charrettes, public input sessions, online opinion polls as to what the community wants at that property. And they've been very clear what they want at that property. And the designs that we have produced to council and we produced to the public and we produced to the West Ashley Revitalization Commission is consistent with what the public wants out there. This is in the heart of my district. I come out of my neighborhood And I see Sumar Street every day. I know what goes on Sumar Street and the old Piggly Wiggly site. I see what happens out there. And the people want that to be done right, and they want it to be done in a first-class manner, because the perception is that West Ashley has been ignored and neglected too long. And I've been putting my efforts for the past several years to look at this particular piece of property to make sure we do it right. Now, the other issues that have come into play with this has caused some of the delay. It's not just a COVID-19 issue, is that the county has proposed several plans to redesign what's called the suicide merge, the intersection of Highway 7 and 171. And the initial plans got rejected. We came out with a second set of plans, and we've been working with the community again because we wanted public input as to what they wanted from this property. And connectivity is a central part of the redesign of not just Sumar Street, not just Sam Rittenberg, not just Old Town Road, not just Orange Grove Road, but the whole area encompassing all of this. And so part of the delay in looking at the designs is we didn't want to have a design that was going to be inconsistent with what the road improvements were going to be as well. That didn't make any sense. It's going to be a waste of time and money. So the efforts have been there. And we're not going to do this overnight, because as I said earlier, we got one shot of doing this. It's a huge investment on the city's part. And I'm asking council, regardless of whether or not Carter comes out there or not, that's immaterial to me. This is just something we're trying to accommodate another public agency on to train their drivers, to make them safer drivers for the public good. That's not the concern here. The concern here is to make sure that Sumar Street and the Piggly Wiggly site is done in a manner that is efficient. And as has been promised to me, we will hopefully have this approval for you, for full council to look at, so we can go forward to the next stages saying in our July 20th meeting. Whether or not you vote for the Carter agreement or not, it's immaterial. It's something different that we're dealing with Sumar Street. Has nothing to do with the development of it whatsoever.
Okay, we're going to put this one to bed. Anyone that really has concerns or alternatives for what we may do, I think that is a discussion that should be in depth in the real estate committee meeting. So I would strongly suggest that anyone that has concerns with regard to this particular project, they should take it back to the real estate committee. Before we close, however, just for the record, on item 11, I would like for Corporation Counsel to come and just give us a bit of background information. Ms. Copeland?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Before we do that, one thing, yes, let's take the vote.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to vote on real estate now. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
Nay.
Nay on items
Nay on
D
D.
and G.
Okay, could you give that info too? You got it? Okay. Okay,
Good afternoon, everyone. Staff and legal wanted to make you aware on item 11, there is an informal challenge to the bid selection of ICC for the smokestacks. And they've raised the issue of the status of their license at the time they applied, as to whether or not it had expired at the time they applied. We've had multiple conversations with LLR. We feel comfortable with you voting tonight on that issue. Yes.
What's an informal challenge?
There hasn't been a formal protest filed yet. It's just someone threatening to do that. But we just wanted to make you aware before you voted on the item.
thank you. Is there anything else to come before this committee? Mayor?
Just to follow up on that comment, I wanted to remind everyone that our chief building official had declared his concern about those smokestacks. And this first phase of action of removing the inner lining, everyone agrees will make the smokestacks safer. Right now, we've got them, a hurricane season's coming up. We actually have an evacuation plan in the event of a strong over a Category 1 storm comes, that we would have to evacuate the neighborhood. And that condition exists until we remove this inner lining. So as of today, signing approving this contract, The contractor, I understand, is fully licensed and meets all requirements and is ready to go. And given the emergency nature of the condition of the smokestacks, I think it's not just prudent, but important that we proceed with.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else to come before this committee? If not, adjourn.